Hola, ¿qué tal, mi gente? Welcome to Bold by Design, the space where you listen raw conversations, unscripted conversations where I bring talented people to share with you their experiences, what they have learned, and more importantly, they share their strategies, how they made it. So, if you are good and up for a ride, this is your space. I'm your host, Genesis Aquino, and today I'm so honored to have with me Shannon. Shannon, I'm so glad to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you, Genesis. Thank you so much for inviting me on to Bold by Design.
I love to have you on board, and I want my audience to obviously get to know you, but I always phrase the very first question out of the normal frame. Tell me about yourself, because this is not an interview. This is not a job interview. So we're going to do this differently. If you were to say who you are without titles, without like any really jargons behind that, who you are, tell us.
First of all, I am a mom and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a pet lover. So I have my pets, a dog and a bird, spiritual, motivated. See, without the titles, we're so used to doing introductions by titles.
Ah,
I think probably the biggest thing is I'm a mom and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mom to a grown daughter. So she's an adult now. So being a mom to a grown daughter is a little bit different than being a mom to a young daughter because she still tells me that she's an adult now and she doesn't need my advice, which I find funny. And then, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur for about 20 years. 2005, I started my first business. And through the years, I've had 4 businesses total. And each business that I start is an upgrade from where I started in the very beginning. New skills, new services, new attitude, new way of working with people. I think that growth. I'm also a world traveler. That's a title I can add to myself without, I guess, it being a title. From 2015 to 2019, I visited 22 countries um, and built my business. I built my third business, which was a lead generation business.
and we're gonna jump into that, but it's so funny that and this is why I always ask the first question this way. I remembered my very first encounter. I was having this conversation with another lady, and she was telling me, so the mindset should be that you should be describing yourself without the titles. You should be able to say who you are without all the titles. And it was funny because at the moment, I was like, but who I am without all the titles. I feel like I invested so much time in, everything that comes with myself. Like I do marketing, I do this, I do that. Like that's who I am. So like it's hard to think outside the box when it comes to introducing ourselves. So I feel you on that end, but it's good. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Bold by Design is honestly in a space I'm trying to bring in young, talented people and also a lot of women, female voices. And the main reason for that is I do believe that we are super talented and there are not as many spaces as we believe there are on. And it's weird because in 2025, you keep hearing that the female population keeps growing, and it's more and more like women in tech, women in leadership titles, and all that. But at the same time, it's not really noticeable. Having this space where I can bring, women that have a voice that are trying to make, something good with purpose in this very moment in time. It's so special for me, and it's good to have you here today. Thank you for sharing, what you do, what you kind of like who you are without the titles. And now going back to the titles, tell us exactly like what did you do professionally? I know you do marketing, but I don't want to spoil it. Like I want to let you do it.
So I provide content, it's specifically content marketing services. As I have evolved as an entrepreneur, where I started, I was a highly technical virtual assistant, and I did that for 10 years. I worked a lot with coaches, authors, and speakers because 20 years ago, the internet wasn't brand new, but it was still new enough that you could throw up a sales page and you could advertise, you could drive traffic to your coaching services. And I was the person at that time who did all of their back end. I had created their newsletters, built their CRMs, built their websites on WordPress. I did all of those things. And I did that for 10 years, which helped prepare me for the next 10. And it's been the last 10 years where I've had the most, I didn't stay one thing for a long period of time like I did as a virtual assistant. So I opened a full service marketing agency, quickly realized after about 2 years, you can't be everything. Like, I offered all of the services and realized that I wasn't good at all of the services. My team wasn't that good at all of the services. So it was really about what do I do here? How do I pivot? How do I make this change? And that's when I learned about LinkedIn lead generation. And so I did that for about 5-6 years and then decided, LinkedIn changes a lot over the years. The algorithm changes. The way that we reach out to people, has changed. I considered LinkedIn, as a form of, okay, I'm going to go knock on a door like a salesperson would. And I still view it that way, but the way that I go about reaching out to people has changed. But so I did lead gen for a while, and then I went ahead and I got a job. I started working with another marketing agency that was a content marketing agency. And I did that for about a year. And that agency decided to morph and pivot into something else. And it wasn't a direction that I wanted to go in. So I started my own content marketing agency, and that's what In the Feed is, and that's what I'm doing now. And we are using AI, but AI is not the end all be all. It's nothing more than a tool, and we're not prompt copy and pasters. We are legitimate, working with a client, creating a strategy, tailoring and building out a specific prompt for them, creating content, and then I am the one that sees it before it goes live, or someone on my team sees it. So every piece of content has a human touch. And that's essentially what we do.
So first of all, I love the name of the company, In the Feed. I think it's very social.
Well, it worked. What I love about the name is it was a name I came up with about 4 years ago when I started a LinkedIn newsletter, and I called it In the Feed. And then after like a year of doing that, I was like, what else can I do with In the Feed? And so I went to see if the domain was available. The domain was not available. So and that was like a year and a half ago. Come to now, in July, when I was able to buy the domain had become available. And so inthefeed.com was like, this is perfect. This is what I wanted. And what I'm finding when I write my content, In the Feed is a natural way of saying when your content shows up in the feed. So I'm loving the content that I'm putting out and the way that it just uses the name of my company in a very natural way.
And I love it. And I think that's what I love it, because I myself do marketing too. I've been doing it for a little bit. I don't think as longer time than you, but definitely In the Feed sounds to me, like right in your face, like you're opening the app and you see it right there. That's what I envision. And it sounds cool. It sounds fresh. It sounds timely. Like you mentioned, when it comes to, the digital marketing side, I think it keeps changing. There is no way to say we have the perfect formula to make it work. This is not the same as traditional marketing. I remember when I started in marketing, I was just doing what it's considered the traditional marketing, like postcards, designing, knocking doors, phone calls, and
traditional in a sense, or old school, like pounding the pavement.
correct. I mean, and I think traditional, I like to call it traditional because for me, it's not really old school. There are many businesses and many entrepreneurs and business owners that are still finding a lot of success in that type of marketing.
Yes.
I have to say it doesn't necessarily work for, every business, but it does plays a role in a vast majority of businesses. And, and it works in collaboration with sales too. So definitely more out of control than you have in the digital marketing side. I think once you're full on in the digital marketing side, you're multitasking multiple things, but it's only you or your team doing it, not like cross collaborating with a different department or someone else. When it comes to
it's a lot more compact And
Yes.
there's less people that you're dealing with, and it's the online business that really takes advantage of the digital marketing space.
Yep. And I have a question for you. This is one question that I like to ask for anyone who does marketing because I have my own definition. So I always get curious how other professionals come about with a different definition from mine. How would you define marketing? What is really marketing for you in your own words?
Building brand awareness. If they don't know you exist, how are you going to show them that you exist? If they don't know you exist, you don't have a business. All right. And the way that you show them you exist is you go knock on doors. You go introduce yourself to people. You go to networking events. LinkedIn is an online networking event. All right. So you don't have to leave your house if you're adverse to leaving your house.
Yeah. And then what it's interesting about that you just mentioned is when it comes to the digital marketing side, we have so many platforms. And every day we have a new one, a new, nonsense or whatever that it's like, oh, I need to jump into that. How do you navigate that part? Like how you and your team manage to say, we're going to draw the line here. These are our boundaries. This is where our energy should be at. How do you kind of like almost like mute the noise of everything else that goes around digital marketing?
So it's a lot of like shiny object syndrome because there's all these new tools that come out. So I think for me, because I've got years behind me, I've had to learn how to ignore this squirrel moments and this shiny object syndrome. Like as you get into business and you've been in business for a long time, you'll find the tools that really, really work for you and you become loyal to them, provided that the company that runs or owns the tool that you're using is still in line with your core beliefs as a business.
Yeah,
So,
it's so interesting. I was having a conversation in one of my previous episodes with my guest, and we were talking about social media because my guest in that specific episode is very much into social media. It's in the real estate business. And we talk about like how from industry to industry there are certain platforms that serves better than industry,
right.
and I think that's our job as a strategist and somewhat as a consultant, whether you're working full-time doing marketing or freelancing or offering the marketing side as one of your services. I think we do still play the role of a consultant because you have to look for the best interest of whatever the business you're representing, right? And a lot of that comes with communicating, okay, here's what we see, here's what this specific industry is being successful at. And now because your friend, XYZ friend, is telling you that you should be doing this, means that you should be doing it. And we talk about it like social media, Instagram, TikTok. And I think he said that in the real estate business, a lot of TikTok and a lot of Instagram, it's a huge thing because it's a lot of video content that it's, being promoted to that specific buyer.
And that's the right place to be. Unless it's a real estate investor is looking at businesses, then, all right, if you're looking to partner with businesses, LinkedIn's going to be the space because that's where businesses are. If you're marketing to the consumer, so regular everyday people, which is the majority, then you want to be on the social platforms where you're going to be featured. TikTok is one of those places, Facebook, Instagram. Blue Sky is becoming one of those spaces. Reddit is one of those spaces. So, and Reddit's becoming one of the number one places for search right now. In fact, a lot of AI, OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, the majority of the content that they pull is all from, a good majority of it is from Reddit.
And that makes sense because and the other thing is Reddit is not new. People think that
No, it's
Reddit
been
is
around a
new
lot.
and it's been around for many years. But I think it has gained popularity in the last maybe, I want to say my experience, like maybe 3 years or so. I think it's gaining more popularity because a lot of people, the content that is there, it's not really structured content. It's
No,
everyone, it's really an open platform where everyone
it is.
just jump in and say whatever they have in mind to say. And then, now with AI, like you mentioned, AI is just scraping information from different sources, and obviously there are certain limitations for the, based off of the language model that you're using. But I feel like most AIs now, they are also scraping real time. Like if you look at Grok, for example, Grok's scrape information right from X. So it's real time. When you go now to what I call it chatty, but it's ChatGPT, right? It's a scraping now real time to information. So
Yeah.
definitely the AI is moving more towards trying to find real time information. People,
Relevant too.
what is relevant, exactly, which is also a danger. I see it as a little bit of a danger because if you are not intentional about the content you're reading, if you're like you mentioned at the very beginning, like just copy and pasting, oh
Yeah.
dear Lord. So I laugh
You,
because it's such a danger. Sometimes AI hallucinates information.
well, and you've got to, I mean, I think people also need to understand they shouldn't just stick with one tool. Chat GPT was a great tool in the beginning. All right. I played around with it. It just wasn't. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to test out Google's Gemini. I really, really liked Gemini, and that was my go-to. And then I started noticing that Gemini was hallucinating in big ways. And then citing things that weren't there. And I was like, okay, I can't use this tool for my clients if this is what the output it's giving me. So I went to Perplexity. What I love about Perplexity is the fact that it does cite things. I have an actual link that I can go and I can read the article to see, okay, is this a relevant article to this post? Like that's what I want. I want to know that what is being given, what the output is true and is original.
And I also want to add on that for anyone who is, tuning in right now, listening, is whether you're a marketing expert or, just someone trying to leverage AI, I think it is very important to determine what's the goal that you have with AI. Because, for example, I love Perplexity too, and I love it for research. When I'm creating like long form and case studies or like reports, I really need the cited information, the data. I love Perplexity for that. And sometimes, Chatty, it's great just for ramping up a lot of content. If I already have an idea, kind of like I use it as my ally on let's refine this idea, because I already know it. Because I know the idea, I know what I want to say. I'll just use it to refine that idea. And then Grok, I like Grok for real time stuff. Sometimes I'm like, I need to create, I don't know, 25 pieces of content for social media this week. Where do I go to? Like, what kind of information I need? I go to Grok, see what people are talking about, what's trending in there. What's funny, you said that you like Gemini or you used to like that. I'm not a fan of Gemini. I haven't found, I don't
That's
know.
what I love. I mean, we have choices. That's
Yes,
sort of the beauty of it is we have choices.
definitely.
I'm sure at some point Perplexity, I may decide Perplexity isn't my thing and I'll find another tool to use. Or maybe ChatGPT just gets really, really good. Or,
Hmm.
I mean, like Gemini made some major improvements recently with their Nano Banano for editing images. Now, I haven't gone and played with it. I just haven't had the time. But that could give me reason to go back to Gemini at some point. But right now, the structure and what Perplexity is giving me, I'm very, very happy with. And my
Same.
clients are happy too, because when they say, I like what you're putting out there because it looks original, it doesn't look like AI wrote it, that's a win for me because I want it to make sure I'm targeting their audience and it's in their tone
And
and that
since
the subject matter's on point.
since we're talking about that, the voice of, I think the most underrated skill in marketing is to really have that defined voice for every single client that we're serving. And I think it's so underrated because that's the part that takes the majority of the time. You can have a lot of content, but if you're kind of like not refining that content to sound like the client that you're representing, at least in my experience, that's what I have experienced, then everything sounds just the same. It's like it's
All
like
across the
yeah,
board. Yeah.
it's like you're going, let's say, to LinkedIn, And I can totally tell when someone uses ChatGPT, like right away. And it goes beyond the whole endacha things and the whole jargon of vocabulary that it likes to use. A lot of people is starting to pick up on those things. But for me, it's not even that. Sometimes it's just the way that it's phrasing things that I can tell. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Yes.
It doesn't sound like a human just authentically
Yep.
came up with that.
And I think that's where the beauty of being a good AI prompter becomes a priority. Because at least for my, in my own experience, I've been using a lot of tools AI wise for about maybe 3 years, probably a little bit more. Because I actually start using AI for video content. I have a long time experience just on the video content part. So before AI was a big thing, I remember Adobe was already releasing a lot of AI mini tools for you to use within their platform. And I was using at the time, I remember a different video editing software, and they were already like using AI to like trim silence moments and, spot where the silent moments were. Now every single video editor has that. But at the
Which is nice.
moment, I know at the moment, that was the only one doing it. So definitely AI is, it's going fast. I think we are not able to keep up, or at least I feel like I'm not able to keep up. Every day is something new. But definitely exploring
it's every day it's something new. And I think it's just, trying to keep a level head. Like the thing that I keep that's sort of coming to me a lot are the agents. And all right, agents are great until they're not. Creating a bot that is an AI bot as your customer service, first point of customer service, is actually quite infuriating. I'm having a problem with your particular software and I go to the chat. I want to speak to someone on the team. I don't want to start with a bot. 9 times out of 10, the bot does the same thing. It spits out the same information every single time you get started. I want to talk to a human. I want to talk to someone who can actually address the issue that I'm dealing with. I don't want to deal with the bot. And I think that any business that has put on their website to start that conversation is going to lose out. Because agents are not the end all be all, and they break. And the thing is AI is moving so fast, you're going to have to recreate that agent again. That agent's going to break because AI has just upped itself again, and that agent is now obsolete, which is a huge reason why I focus on the AI and the human integration in the content that we do. Because I know, I could create an agent for each one of my clients and have it spit out content. But without me looking at that content's going to be trash.
And I agree with you on that. I think I was reading, I think it was Forbes, who a couple weeks ago, they released a whole article on AI and how it touches a little bit on every single main content out there. So I was talking about, fear on AI, fear on replacing humans. And it was also mentioning a little bit about like how AI, it's being used right now in businesses. And then at the very end of the article, I remember reading that they mentioned that it's been proven based on my stats, I just don't recall the number, that the majority of the businesses that are having the most success right now, currently in 2025, are the businesses that are deciding to pull back from AI when it comes down to customer service. Because exactly like you said, there is so much fatigue of like AI bots and when I put myself in the shoes of a customer, regardless of what service or product I'm buying, if I'm already going to your website to try to have an answer, it's probably because I already have a problem. So I want answers right away. I want to have that connection. If not, I just get pissed. I'm like, come on, you're gonna have to go through all this?
I'll find another tool. if I have to, That's kind of where I am at on it. A huge thing for me as a business owner is that communication. All right. I'm not a big phone person. So calling me on my phone is not going to be the best way to get a hold of me as a business, but sending me an email, shooting me a quick text, I'm available. I'm available to you. Send me a DM on social. I'm available to you. All right. Like, especially with the email, I'm going to get back to you within an hour, 2 hours. I'm not going to make you wait for an answer. That was one of the big things as a virtual assistant that was so important to me, was that I was available to my clients so that if they had a question, it was answered promptly and right away. And I think I got that way because when I was 9, my mom owned a children's clothing store. And she was like, I want you to come in and I want to teach you how to, work with the customers behind the counter. And so she taught me how to gift wrap. She taught me how to count money back without a calculator, which is a skill I still know how to do. And people find it pretty impressive when I can count back change based on like, here's what it's $10.49 and they give me $11 counting the change back. I'm not going to do it on here, but I can count the change back, even if it's a funky number. I should probably do a LinkedIn post about that and see if I get anybody.
There you go. You have a new content idea there.
Yeah. But that was something that was ingrained in me at 9 years old. And I carry that with me as a business owner, that I am there and 100% available. Not necessarily for emergencies, because there are definitely emergencies that our clients will cause on their own that I can't necessarily I'll be there to support, but to a certain extent. So,
well, there is a saying in there that when everything is an emergency, then anything is an emergency. Like, not everything is an emergency. Come on, let's be honest. We like to make everything feels like it's an urgent thing. Yes, that I need this resolved like now. Is it?
I had a client who started every email with urgent.
Oh God.
And I finally got to the point. So I don't use the word urgent. I use important. If I just need to get their attention, that's it. But I, at one point, had learned from another coach that your client's poor planning is not an emergency for you. So.
That's so interesting.
And I had a client who was notorious at getting things back to me at last minute that, I probably should have had 5 days to work on. And so, needless to say, that relationship ended.
And let's just go back a little bit on your business model. So you are offering marketing services to a specific type of clients. What exactly, when we say marketing, what exactly are you offering? Is it blogging? Is it SEO? SEM, it's social media content. Let's kind of walk me through the process in the feed.
So it's social media content. All right. We're creating long form, short form. We'll create the images, all branded, carousels, infographics, whatever, it is that we have, because we create a content calendar. That's how it starts, is we create a content calendar. Once they approve the calendar, then we start writing. The tool that we use is called Metricool. And so it gives us the ability. So typically my team will load up the content into Metricool and they'll send it to me for approval. So I'll take a look at it. I usually will create a video to send them my feedback. These are the things that need to change, what needs to be edited, or how I want this formatted. They apply that. They send it to me for another review. Once I approve it, I then send it to the client for review. And I can do all of that within the tool, which is really nice. Usually we're only sending to the client for review the first couple weeks, so that they can give us feedback. They don't like all the emails because they get an email for every piece of content that has to be reviewed. So after about 2 weeks of that, they're like, all right, we're good. We've given you feedback. We trust you. Roll with it. And yeah, that's basically our process. And every month it just turns over.
I want to say maybe 50% of my time as a marketer is creating content and doing that process. Having that feedback when you're serving clients, if they decided to go to, let's just say, with you or with a marketing agency, or even with, maybe a freelancer, whoever they're choosing to do their marketing, they're definitely going to that person because they see the value of freeing their time. So if they have to go back multiple times with feedback, I think that's right there a flag. I wouldn't say a red flag, because there is a specifically, there is in like similar to any relationship, there is a phase where you're getting to know each other. You're getting to know like what's your personality, what's your tone, what do you like, what do you don't like. So that's okay. But if after that kind of like time, let's call it onboarding. I mean, I'm not sure if it's an onboarding thing, but let's call it onboarding.
Yeah.
After
Usually
a
it's on
specific,
onboarding.
yeah, like after a certain period of time, you should be able to like really trust whoever you are deciding to, hire to do your marketing. So yeah, I agree with you totally on that. We've been so trackside out of the actual outline that we created together for this
But that's
episode.
a good thing. That's
This
kind
is
of
a
what we
great
wanted
thing.
to do.
Yeah, definitely. But there is one question that I had on my notes and I really want to go over because I love stats. I think numbers are so important. People understand numbers. I love numbers. So it says, according to a joint study from Yale and MIT Sloan, women are 14% less likely than men to be promoted even when they outperform them. In your journey as a founder, have you ever seen that gap when we compare women to men? Have you encountered that? Did that play a role for you to say, you know what? This is my boundary. This is where I'm done. I'm going to pursue and do my business and let's give all my energy to that.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. A story that comes to mind is I was working with a video production company in Seattle, and their big accounts were Amazon and Microsoft, doing a lot of videos for them. I was in charge of doing their lead generation. And one of the things that I wanted them to do with their lead generation was start putting content up and start getting content up consistently. And the owner was having a bottleneck issue, lots of problems. And so we were having meetings where I was giving him suggestions on things that he could do to help streamline his process, where I could come in and create content on his behalf, and he could, he could edit it the way that he wanted. But again, he was the bottleneck. Like he was he was the problem for the reason content wasn't getting out. And strategy. So after several months of this, one day I come into a meeting and there's a new gentleman at the table. And the gentleman at the table is spouting all of these things off that I had been telling my client for several months. And my client is glued. And I didn't lose it in the meeting, but I definitely made faces. I do one of these things where I'm thinking, and I know people can tell I'm thinking out loud, because it was like, are you freaking kidding me?
It's so sad. It's so sad.
And that's one of many. That's one of many. Red flags for me is when you're on a sales call with someone who could be a potential client and they're selling themselves really hard to you. They're going to be a problem client. And the reason they'll be a problem client is because they're hard to work with. They're typically the bottleneck in their own company. You're not going to get anything done for them because they won't allow you to move forward. And they know this, which is why they try and sell themselves. So like normally I'm the salesperson, right? I'm trying to sell you into working within the feed. But when I am on the other end of that call and the potential client is really selling himself and his company to me, it's a huge red flag. That's,
It is so interesting. I mean, I'm so glad that you're sharing this because I think up to a certain extent, I think a lot of, business owners or entrepreneurs, when they're kind of like passionate about their business, they are selling their business. So how do you like differentiate when they're selling too hard or when they're really passionate about, their company or their business?
And unfortunately, it's one of those things that we have to learn the hard way, because I'm sure I'll fall into the trap again. Someone that, because when they are selling themselves so hard, they're also very, very charming. They know how to do it. So I think it's a trust your instincts. If you start to kind of get a gut feeling like, oh, this guy kind of seems a little smarmy, trust that gut and then, finish the call. You don't have to follow up.
You know, I love that. I love
It's
that.
okay to say no. I think that's the thing. You don't have to work with every potential prospect, especially if you got a gut feeling or if they are doing things, you've seen them do things online where you're like, doesn't align with my internal beliefs, the things I believe about being an entrepreneur, those kinds of things.
And I'm gonna pull some of that content right now, and I'm gonna ask, because I think as a females, right? At least for myself, I know you're a mom too. I'm in this phase where I have young children, where they need me, and I try to be for them as much as I can on my crazy schedule. But I think I never overlook how much I've changed as a professional ever since I became a mom. I think people that have known me for a very long time, they can definitely tell the difference who I was maybe 8, 9 years ago to how I react to many things nowadays. And I think for some people, maybe a red flag, like, wow, she changed. And for me, it's not really a change. It's just I adapt. I think being a mom has allowed me to have a different perspective on what is really important and how do I really need to communicate certain, in certain situations. And funny enough, sometimes and lately especially, what has worked the most for me is every time that I'm having a really tough conversation or like I'm not seeing eye to eye, I try to think, what if it was my kid that like is telling me all of this? How would I react? And it's kind of crazy that that has worked for me, because on those moments, on those situations, I literally like internally tell to myself, you don't have to win this fight. Like literally, you don't have to. I mean, you lost the battle even since the very beginning of it. Like no, and
Pick your battles.
it brings me back to earth. So how do do you relate to that? How is motherhood really playing a role on everything that you do right now?
I think my spirituality and my role as a mom has definitely changed. I was a single mom, and I've never been married. I wrote a letter the other day, and it was after an argument with someone, and I needed to just get out what I was feeling. And then I rewrote the letter and I sent it to my daughter so that she could read it. And her comment back to me was, I can see, based on one, how you're hurt by this, but also the way that you wrote, how much you've grown as a person and how much you've changed over the years, because there was a calmness in the letter. I made my points, but it was in the most loving. I think that's the other two, is just setting that intention. I try and set the intention every day that I work from a space of love, joy, and abundance. And everything that I do, that's the space, that's the frequency I want to bring to everything that I do. And I want that to show up in my content. I want that to show up when I work with my clients, and when I work with my team, and when I'm just working with people in general.
I love that. I love that you're sharing that. We're getting back to the very end of our time together. But before we part away, I would love to ask you, to everyone who's like right now listening or watching on YouTube, if there is only one advice that you can give to them, whether it's a young lady, whether it's maybe, like more like us person, a professional, whatever it is, but needing that extra, courage to keep going, what will be your piece of advice?
It's actually it's a quote, and I have it under my email signature, but it's a quote by a gentleman named Harvey Mackay. He says, if you are persistent, you will get there. If you are consistent, you will keep it. And that is the key. If anything worth doing requires patience, it requires persistence, and it requires consistency. So a great example of that is you've got to build brand awareness around your product or service. All right. That means you've got to show up on social, whether you're writing content or it's in video, whatever that looks like for you. And you're going to get started and you're going to do it for a couple weeks. Maybe you'll do it for 30 days and be consistent, and you're going to be really bummed with the results. But guess what? You don't start to see good results until you've done it for 3 months. And when you get to the end of 3 months, you may look at it and go, I'm not crazy about the results, but look at where you are. Look at all the conversations you've had in the last 3 months. That is growth. So do it for another 3 months and keep doing that. Check in on yourself. And if you've got to pivot, guess what? Totally okay to pivot. So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Shannon, for, your time, sharing, everything that you love doing, sharing your expertise and your heart really with us. I can definitely tell that you really feel you care for your clients, you care for what you're doing, and I can tell that. And if I can tell that, I bet the rest of our audience is also
Thank you.
Can see that too. Again, thank you for making the time. And for all of you who are connecting and listening, I will leave all Shannon's information in the description below. Make sure to follow her, to check what she's doing. If you're looking for marketing services, I'm more than sure that you can connect with her and she will be more than happy to help you. Until next time, for another episode of Bold by Design, this is your host, Genesis Aquino. It was my pleasure to be here today with all of you. See you next time.